Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin wa ashabihi al-muntajibin. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So within the whole scheme of wayfaring or this inner motion towards God, there are those states that of necessity have to accompany the wayfarer from the inception of the journey to its culmination within godliness. The very first one of this state is this desire to want to meet with God. Now, until and unless there is this burning desire within the hearts, this journey does not really take place because the journey is of the heart. So, no matter what we do with our bodies, the number of adhkar that we perform with our tongues, or the devotional acts, or the fasts, until and unless the heart begins to feel this desire and yearning, and we'll talk about yearning next week, but this desire to be with God, the journey does not truly begin. Now, we might ask then, well, how do we induce this desire within our souls? That is the most difficult part of this whole scheme of wayfaring. That we have to practice physically trying to gain the favor of God to ignite the heart in His want. And sure enough, God will respond. And there will be that bestowal from God where the heart begins to yearn God Himself. But it's a difficult task. If you don't feel love, you don't feel love. You can't force yourself to feel love. But if you were to look at it differently, if you were to be with a person for a long period of time and you begin to see the good qualities of that person, inevitably the heart will give in and that love will take birth. And then there will be that desire to be with that person. Same is the case with God. We have to persevere with devotion to God until the time comes when the heart begins to want to be with God internally. And that is when the true journey begins. But the difficult point here is that we, as we advance in age, we become so settled in our ways. Our thought processes are so automated that we do not even think, and things are taking place within us. So when we start striving towards God and we do not find any result, we will draw back. It is here, there, that we need to adhere to the principle of endurance and perseverance. That we need to persevere, keep on knocking at the door until there is a response. When the response comes, it will be felt by the heart, and we will know that the response is there. Now, when we are younger, in our teens, yearning God is much easier than what it is when we are much older. So, therefore, our masters, and of course, in accordance with the spiritual literature and the instructions of the Prophet and the wonderful Imams, they always say that engage yourself spiritually in your younger years, for that will become a permanent disposition within your souls. As you advance in your lives, the heart becomes hardened. By hardened, what it means is that it acquires an identity. It loses that perception, that inner feel faculty or feel property. It just becomes robotically accustomed to doing things. As we get older, the task becomes more and more difficult, but that should not deter anybody. If we can only remind ourselves that the time is very limited, The opportunity is passing away. If I were to move back from my task of advancing to God, then I might not get a second opportunity, or that valuable days will be lost. So, here what we need to do is establish a routine for ourselves and follow that routine religiously. Bring Salah on time to start off with. Then introducing calmness and focus in that Salah. Then introducing the ceremony of ablution with reflection. Then introducing the ceremony of wearing different garments during Salah. Then perfuming ourselves, not to overly burden it with ceremonies, but to gradually introduce ceremonies so that the heart and the mind can become released from its constant preoccupations so that they can become focused on the task at hand and we can become attentive. Once we begin to do this and we can persevere with it, we find that the heart begins to relent. And as the heart begins to relent, it begins to feel again. As it feels again, it begins to understand the loftiness and the beauty of the objective that it is striving for. And that is called as desire to meet with God. Now, this desire, when it dawns upon the souls, it is supposed to make us restless. There is no peace until we connect again and again with God, as if something is missing in our days. It is when young people fall in love with each other and they soon begin to find that actually their minds are preoccupied with the other. They begin to miss hearing from the other. They look forward to the time that they are going to spend with their beloved. That is the sort of state that takes birth within the soul, that the heart cannot wait for that moment where they go and reunite with their beloved in prayer, in devotion. That slowly takes a person to a state where they begin to realize that they have become preoccupied with the beloved. So no longer is there a set time. At all times they are preoccupied. That then gives way to another state, the response of the beloved. Now, the response of God sometimes comes as, yes, I am here. You hear it, and there is nothing audible to hear, but you hear it. But more than that, it is not the audible response of God. It is the presence of God that is felt deep in the soul. And that is not only therapeutic to the heart, but it is wholesomely curing for the heart and enlivens the heart. It brings the heart to a state of different life, where the heart is beautifully preoccupied in a way that they are not distracted from other things, but they are motivated with freshness towards doing everything else as well. Such is the presence of God, and desire begins to intensify. And just as lovers exchange gifts, the one who desires God begins to do everything for the sake of God. Now, this is very different to the state that somebody like me has at present, where I notionally entertain God and say to myself, oh Allah, I am giving this in your way. Or that, oh Lord, I am forgiving this person, whatever wrong he may have done to me. At that level is a very different way of doing things for the beloved. It is not emotional, it's God's presence with the individual, and the individual is sharing on behalf of God the wealth, and he is forgiving on behalf of God. It becomes a very different scenario. In any case, this is the state of desire, and that has to be a perpetual state. Now, younger people have the desire to be with the absolute prior to engaging in wayfaring. People at our age may not have that desire. They may have to embark upon wayfaring and endure it for a long bout of time, be persistent within it until they begin to feel the desire within their soul. The secret here is to remind ourselves that we are certainly capable of feeling that intense desire for God. We have to ignite it. And this is the only way to ignite it, to constantly force ourselves into attentiveness and focus with God. Now, one of the sure ways of bringing God's presence and opening the doors of the heart and removing it from its habituated state or softening it because it becomes hardened with the identity that I am is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we engage in the dhikr of Allah, there is no method, there is no particular prescriptive manner. Just say Allah, 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 La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. When we keep on saying this, not the first day, not the second day, not the third day, but after 1 week, 2 weeks, after a month, my goodness, when we say Allah, ah, with that the heart shall move and it will be felt within. And then, even when we don't remember Him by speech, we will hear our heart singing the name of Allah. There is no sound, we will hear it nonetheless. Persistently doing these things brings about the opening of the heart and the yearning of the heart of the most beloved. I will stop there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.